Bat bombs might be one of the most interesting, if not also one of the worst World War II era weapons, because it weaponized literal bats, like sky puppies, bats. Bat bombs were designed to leverage the bat's natural inclination of nesting in small areas like eaves of houses and up in trees. The idea was to turn bats into bombs. You can suddenly start large-scale fires in rural areas. So the way this idea worked was to take live bats, put them in little backpacks with napalm in them that were designed to go off on a timer. Then the bats would be put to sleep by putting them in these large canisters and cooling the canisters so they would naturally hibernate. Those canisters would be loaded into bombers. The bombers would release the canisters over a target area. In this case, the target was Japan. The idea was houses that were made largely of paper walls and other flammable materials were the best targets for these bombs. So the bat-loaded projectiles were dropped from bombers, and then as the air heated, the bats would naturally wake up. And once they woke up and realized they were flying, they would suddenly find a place to roost. No one would say anything because it's just bats doing bats things. And then their little napalm backpacks would go off, and suddenly there was a large-scale fire. The project actually got to test stages, and in 1943, the U.S. Army discovered just how good/bad this weapon could be. Bats were taken out of Carlsbad Caverns, which ordinarily would be completely against the law, but was allowed during wartime. The bats were given little backpacks, they were cooled to sleep, loaded into bombs, and then dropped over a target site in New Mexico. Base personnel who'd been asked to vacate the facilities during the test just watched as, their base erupted into flames and just burned to the ground. The project was ultimately canceled because it's really hard to train bats to roost in very specific areas. And that's probably a good thing because I just hate the idea of a weapon that kills the animal that is part of it. So there were no casualties attributed to bat bombs during the Second World War, except for the bats who were unfortunately part of the test. And the only buildings destroyed were the Army's own buildings.